Hello and welcome, I'm Kayla the Scrivener, and today I'm going to be talking about horror books that I want to be reading. So I haven't done TBRs in a while just because I haven't felt like reading much, and I haven't been reading a lot of the stuff that I've wanted to read, and I've just kind of been mooting it around. That is now a verb. And sorry for the traffic. I live near a major road, and it is nice, and the light is better with the window open, so it shall be a non-perfect video, and that is beautiful. Anyways, so I want to do horror, and I want to especially do classic horror because I used to always say, like, I read everything but romance and horror, and now I read both. So this is why you should always be open to reading more books and, like, evolving as a human and as a reader. So that's what I'm trying to do. I am doing this kind of asking you for recommendations, especially for women horror authors and also for, like, people of color and people that are not in Europe or North America, because I would love to see more of that, especially classics, because that's, I think I want to read classics more in the horror things because I want less, like, bloody and, like, things. I just want more, like, explorations and commentaries into the things and the horror that allows. So my first book on here is The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. This was published in the 50s and 60s, and so for Shirley Jackson is kind of my belief that, like, I can read horror and that I will like horror, and I really, really loved The Haunting of Hill House. I took it as a friend's recommendation and I really, really loved it. And then I read her other book, and it's wonderful, and I read her short stories, and this follows a town that has a tradition of drawing a lottery and killing someone, and it does a lot of commentary on, like, what we do. And then we have other stories, and it's gonna be great. I'm very excited for it. A lot of these I don't actually have a lot of things on it, because a lot of horror things, they're not really trying to give you a lot because they're trying to entice you. So the next one I have is, the oldest one is The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. I've been trying to read it for a while, and I've been interested in this, and it is from 1764, so it is an old tale, and I don't know much from, like, the thing. It doesn't seem that horror-esque. It's like during the Crusades, and it was like, this gothic horror, and it's one of his favorites. So I don't know, I've heard great things, I've heard creepy things, I've heard it's not really horror, but, like, I don't really want, like, hardcore horror. I just want, like, psychological exploration of stuff. There are moths coming in the window. Please respect my personal space of bugs. Then we have The Only Good Indians, and this is a 2020 release. I'm excited for this. I did not write the author down. Okay, it has 3 names. It is dark dramatic narrative, and has social commentary. I don't know that much other than I think it has to do with trauma. It would make sense a lot with, like, residential schools, because I believe this is a Canadian author, and kind of looking at the exploration of how trauma informs things, which is kind of what I want to do more horror, and, like, how the past haunts us. I don't know. Then we have Mexican Gothic, which is my other 2020 release, and the only ones that are published in, you know, the 21st century. And I don't know much about it, other than I heard that it's not that horror-esque, it's more like thriller-esque, which I love, and also that it is very inspired by Rebecca and also The Yellow Wallpaper, which are one of my favorites, first of all. And The Yellow Wallpaper is the first horror book I ever read, and I read it by mistake because I, like, loved it so much, and I was like, this is exploration of mental health in the 1890s. I love it so much. I ordered it because it was like $2, and I get to the end, like, this is an hour audiobook, and I was like dying. I was like, I don't think I want to relate to the character anymore. But, like, that is why I want to read horror, because this wouldn't be a list of going into horror if I wasn't going to read Stephen King, and I'm a little bit hesitant. I did read The Institute, and it wasn't that scary. It was more like psychological, which is what I'm like. I'm gonna say those words all the time. And this one is Pet Sematary, which out of all his books seems like the most. It's the most emotional, which is good. I want to be brave enough to go into his other books, but there are also some of them are really long. This one is long, but, like, I don't know. It's about family. It's about a cemetery. I think they live on top of a cemetery. Creepy story. My family, when I was like 15 to like 17, right before I kind of was moving out of home. The house that had been, like, this meadow and, like, cow field across the road from me got bought, and they were like, we're gonna make a pet cemetery, and I was like, I feel like there's a movie on this that should be terrifying. So my place of solace as a child got turned into pet cemetery, so hopefully it's not that creepy, because I still have to visit my parents sometimes. And then I also have The Island of Dr. Morrow. I really should have checked that first. This is an 1896 book by H.G. Wells, and this is kind of an exploration of evolution and creation and like, should we make smarter people? At least that's what it said, but it's like, guy gets stranded on a Pacific island, so maybe Lord of the Flies, but I'm assuming that's not considered horror. And exploration. I like don't love H.G. Wells, but I read The Invisible Man and The Time Machine. I was both like, these are good, they're not like wowing books, so I'm hoping that this book seems like a little bit more exploration of some stuff. So now I own some books, which we have Edgar Allan Poe. So I have read some of his poems I've not read, and I have not read any of his short stories yet, so I'm hoping to read some of his short stories. I'm not going to put a limit on it. And again, this is just kind of going to foray of especially a lot of the famous stuff, and this is a hefty book. But I love it. I like to think that I kind of look like Dear Edgar. And then I own these, which are, humorously enough, even though I bought them like 2 years apart, the same copies, and this is backwards, of this. So I have The Picture of Dorian Gray, which I definitely want to read. I've been wanting to read for a really long time. I don't think I need to explain the plot, and oh, and it has other stories as well. Yay. And I really like Oscar Wilde and the stuff I've read for him. So this is about a man who, again, moths, and he doesn't care about moths, although his corpse that is in a picture probably does. So pretty much when he's young, he's like, I'm gonna make a evil spirit, demon, whatever. He makes a deal with the devil and is like, I'm gonna grow really old, but only my picture, eternal youth. It's all of that. Has some great commentary, heard great things. And then I also have this one, which I wasn't going to include in the list, but I don't want to stack it too much with like white classics. But I am participating in Gothic Lit, who Kate from Chapter Kate is running up, and this is our book for September, and I was asked to host, so I'm very excited. So this will be probably one of the first, other than the lottery, which I already have, so that's going to be exciting. Oh, me going to turn off the camera and then being like, no. So this book is about the vampire story, except for it's like way less creepy, and it's told from the perspective of letters, not actually Dracula. So the one I'm probably most excited for is Sandman by Neil Gaiman, because it's a classic. It's like taking a folklore, fairy tale, whichever it's called, and making it into a horror book. And it's Neil Gaiman. I normally like Neil Gaiman. Do I always like Neil Gaiman? But he does a really good job of taking like benign things and making them fucking terrifying. So I'm excited for this. I've been doing a huge comic book like love of everything. I've been reading a lot of Batman. That video of like what comics I'm going to be reading is coming out soon too, so yeah. And this is an honorary mention because it's not really horror, but it's thriller, and that's kind of connected. And I wanted another woman, and I also want an excuse to push myself to read this book because I don't own it. I'm going to have to go to the library, but this is Jamaica Inn by not Rebecca, but Daphne du Maurier. And this is 1936, so it's actually, I believe, like 2 or 3 years before Rebecca came out, and this is like this woman, her mother dies, and she gets told to go and live with her aunt and uncle, and as she goes, there's this ruined Cornish mansion, and the coachman is like, don't go here. So yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be great and eerie and like atmospherics and character development and bad characters and wonderful characters, and I'm excited, guys. I want to get into horror. I think I'm finally brave enough, maybe. So please recommend other books that I should read, other classics, especially other books that are more psychologically focused and aren't going to make my skin crawl, because I don't really need that in my life. As I say, as I make a horror recommendation. Yeah. Anyways, I will check in with these books when I'm done. Or like break them up, because I'm obviously not going to be able to talk about probably all of these books in depth. We'll figure out what we're going to do, and I will show you the results. I am mostly active on Instagram, which is Kira the Scrivener, sometimes on Twitter, and I try to do good reviews on Goodreads. So you can find me all in all those places, and otherwise, have a great day and happy reading. This is really not an appropriate, thumbnail, but I am enjoying this. This is the need.